Okay, so welcome everyone. This is the second meeting of the FaçadeX Data Facades community group. As we said last time, we start with the application presentation layout. Today we have Ryan Shaw. Ryan, can you introduce yourself maybe briefly, and then really the floor is yours.
Sure. So let me go ahead and, oh gosh. Sorry, Teams wants me to quit and reopen before it'll let me share my screen. So let me do that really quick.
Of course.
That's fine, of course. So while we wait for Ryan, and just for the newcomers, we just have a presentation on kind of FaçadeX use cases and applications by Ryan Shaw, and then we will discuss a bit what's the status towards the specification. Really, this is the first meeting where we'll have to think about how do we package these things, and yeah. So we can see your screen. But you're muted. Nice.
Sorry, I'm used to Zoom, not Teams. So I am not a computer scientist. I teach at a school of information and library science. So my students are hoping to become work in the area of like health informatics or to work in libraries. And so many of them do not have much programming experience, but they do learn data modeling, data organization, information organization. So my first attempt to kind of teach a knowledge graph oriented course to students like this was in 2000 to 2022, where we had a project-based course where they were building a digital gazetteer of North Carolina as a knowledge graph. And for that, we were using Tarkle, where the students would work on CSV files, basically. And then me and my teaching assistants and some of the students who had some experience with Sparkle would work on the Tarkle queries to construct contributions to the knowledge graph from CSV files that these students were working on together. And that was working pretty well, but I started teaching a new version of this course where it was spread across 2 semesters, where the first semester they would get a better grounding. All the students would get a grounding in the core technologies, RDF and Sparkle, RDFS, Shackle, and OWL. And then in the second semester in the spring, we would work on a project together. And when we started doing this, I was looking for a replacement for Tarkle. And I looked at, I think RML is a kind of a competing technology, and then Sparkle Anything. And I liked Sparkle Anything because it was closer to the model that we were following with Tarkle. And so you can see, I'll put this in the chat. Actually, I'm not sure how to open the chat, but I'll put it in the chat once I stop sharing. So this is what we did this past spring, and one of the reasons I like this approach is because the students learn Sparkle and they don't have to learn any additional technologies to work on a project where we can have data coming from different sources and different formats. and transform it into contributions to the knowledge graph. And so that's what we did this past spring. And again, these are students that don't come from a programming background, but they were able to understand Sparkle Anything and write queries like this to construct SCOS taxonomies from, again, from CSV files. For this project, we were also had GeoJSON files that we were using as sources. I think this is, yeah, so here's one with it. Has the GeoJSON in there as well. So that's kind of how we're using it now, and we'll be doing it again this spring. But I'm also interested in interactive tools. It's very common that like a data librarian or a data curator has data coming in different formats, CSV files and JSON files, and going straight to writing a Sparkle query is a little bit difficult for some of them. So I'm also interested in kind of building tools for like an interactive query builder for mapping from like a CSV file to a construct query, basically. And that's something I'm going to be experimenting with also in the spring to see if I can make some tools to make things a bit easier for my students. So that's basically how I'm
very
using,
nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. No, this is great. No, the first thing that you made me think is on the fact that yes, your target are not computer scientists or developers or software engineers, which is really one of the main assumptions that we started from with Luigi. So we were working on a project in cultural heritage, and we had clearly a lot of stakeholders that used to play with RDF, and they like to play with RDF, but they didn't necessarily were programmers. And this applies also to many ontology engineers, right? They're very expert in RDF-based technologies, in OWL, in maybe in Datalog or in other kind of like languages, but are not developers. So I think this is certainly relevant. And maybe a question I have is about what it is that, in your opinion, of course, clearly building a query is more than knowing the syntax of knowing Sparkle syntax. Now you need to do a lot of things. So there are two questions. One is, what do you think is what are the sweet spots in this approach, and what are instead the things that are a bit harder to understand for users?
Well, so I think the sweet spot, like I said, is that I'm already teaching them Sparkle. I think that's an important tool for them to learn. So the fact that they can then immediately kind of get started with Sparkle, and I don't have to teach another abstraction layer or something on top of that, that was really the big attraction for me. It is, I think, communicating the idea of the facade is certainly a little abstract for students, and that's why but once they see examples, then it's much clearer. And that's why I was thinking that something interactive where they can also be seeing the results kind of as they update the query would also help make it click for them.
Nice, yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and I think it also helps is related to one discussion we want to have today, which is about how do we present this in a specification. Because clearly in our papers we have like a description logic version of the FacadeX, and we have a Java code, but clearly we need to present this in a way that is on the one hand intuitive and informative, and then after that we can have a formalization that maybe is more like gives like the objective layer in the specification. Anyone else has questions or observations? Okay. So So maybe we can move on the agenda for today, which is essentially, Luigi, do you want to give a quick update on what's the status? We started to build something to manage the work in the community group.
Yeah, we have created them. Let me share my screen. Okay. Yeah, we have created a GitHub organization for collecting all the contribution from the community group. Now we just have two repositories, one for the meetings, where you will find notes, minutes of meetings, agenda, and maybe collecting supporting material for meetings. And then last week I created this repository by that the idea is to have to collect issues for the metamodel specification, and I also configured the GitHub pages so that we have the HTML version of the specification. I used respec from the W3C, just copied the main template field in the main part, the first part about editors and basic notions about the specification. So the rest of the document is empty, and so the idea is for today, maybe we can start shaping this document, maybe by deciding the sections, and also start discussing formalisms, languages that we can use to write the specification of the meta model. So that was the idea for today's meeting.
Okay, thank you, Luigi. One question I have before talking about the document, can we share the GitHub repository? Did we share the GitHub repository with everyone so that people can jump in? And I will invite all of you to join the organization, and so that they can also, so that everybody can also contribute to the issues, and because we will basically drive the development of all the specifications using the GitHub. But clearly you can do it probably even without it. Everything will be public. But if you want to join also the GitHub organization and group, that will be helpful. Sure. Okay, thank you. So we just shared the link, but maybe we can also mention this in the next email when we give a feedback to the list. Yeah. Going back to the document, so I have one doubt I want to share with all of you, and also see your opinion on this. So FasadX as a meta model is independent from RDF. Okay, so our idea is that we have this kind of meta model that we can easily map to serialized formats. We show that it can be mapped to any serializable format that's expressible in a BNF grammar. And so we can express this independently from RDF. But of course, we also want to provide a vocabulary, an RDF vocabulary that kind of specifies the facade in RDF terms, which will be and may be used in when implementing the approach. Okay. So here you have two options. One, we only do the RDF vocabulary, and we go somehow by example in the showing how it maps with the various syntaxes, with the various formats. Or we write two documents, one with the FasadX meta model specification, and one with the FasadX vocabulary, and we show how to map. For me, I think it looks better the second one. So we have this intermediate specification, because then we can map the specification to the various formats and indirectly obtain the RDF version. Or maybe this is a complication. We should also only speak RDF and just describe how these facades how the facade look like in RDF, how FACADEX resources look like in RDF, and only show the mappings between, for example, the CSV source or the JSON source to the FACADEX version. I don't know if I was clear or if I was just creating confusion. But one question will be, what will be easier for implementers? Because one objective for us is to have something, to not only have SPARQL Anything as implementation, but also to open up to database vendors or any other.
So if we go by example, format by format, what happens when there is another format to be mapped to RDF? If you don't have a specification of the meta model independently from the legacy format, let's call it, what happens when we need to add a new format? Maybe it is very we leave this freedom to do whatever they want to map a format to RDF. So maybe that could be a problem if we go in this way by just enumerating the examples.
I don't know. I can imagine one can express like mappings between. The problem is that if you have done a FACADEX vocabulary only, how do you express a mapping between JSON object or a CSV to this vocabulary? So you need somehow to have a representation for the source CSV, for the source JSON, for all these meta models that is unified. This is why I'm inclined to think that we need two specifications, one as the abstract meta model and the other as the RDF vocabulary. I don't know if anyone else has opinion on this or. Ayo, yeah.
Yeah, I like the idea of having two models, but are we the right community group for that? Because we all work with RDF, so it would have been nice to have somebody here to bring the requirements to such a model that does not and would not work with RDF and actually will use this non-RDF specification.
Yeah, this makes sense. On the other hand, I worry that if we don't have this intermediate specification, how do we implement? How do we specify like how this will be implemented to, for example, JSON? So how do we represent the mapping if we don't have a language that can represent JSON, CSV, or whatever? So how do we tell implementers how to implement this transformation? That's a bit my Salvador.
Yes. So as I said in the last meeting, I think it's a good idea to have, for example, a little ontology per file format. Because in this case, I mean, I was thinking about this the last, month, but the problem is that for the query with querying with SPARQL, it may be very difficult because in this case we will not have an ontology. We will have a meta ontology with meta classes and meta object properties and meta relations. So this will be complicated as we are having right now these queries that may arise the time of executing them. In the case we have multiple values, and as we have right now the RDF1, RDF2, RDF3, etc. So it can be done on a little ontology per file format. For example, the JSON ontology, the XML ontology. And I'm looking right now for the different types of ontology that already exist that are, for example, standard, and I'm not finding anyone. So it can be a good initiative to have, for example, one meta ontology per file format in order to have this standardized. I mean, in order to have it in an ontology format and for later to be used by developers to develop it in different, code standards. So, for example, we already know that we have it in Java, but in the future we can have it in Python and all those kind of things. So if we have the ontology to map the values that we have within the XML, the JSON, etc., to this RDF format, it would be perfect. Because in this case, instead of generating this RDF that is in this case not semantic because it's not using a model behind, to have a graph, in this case, an RDF model that is also semantic because we have an ontology behind. So that's an idea that I was having this months. But I mean, it's only an idea.
I think this is very relevant because one of the goals of this group is to come out with profiles for each one of the formats. Okay, so basically the plan is we have a generic RDF vocabulary, which will be the FASADX vocabulary, and then we will have specializations for each one of the formats. We will have FASADX CSV profile, JSON profile, XML profile, and so forth.
Yes.
So I think this is very relevant and very
Yeah, and this is an example that who shared this? Brian.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, it can be an example like this, but for every kind of file format that we are going to use, as we are using, for example, PowerPoint, Markdown, etc., we can create like this meta ontology in order to have it modeled.
Yes, exactly.
And this can be a good approach to have this taking into account for the future Sparkle queries that we are going to make, because right now it is very complicated. For example, we have the member object property right now within these triples in order to obtain all the values that are from a specific value. So the thing is how we can extend this member to other values to have better Sparkle queries execution times. So
wait, I don't understand.
Okay,
so
yeah,
give us an example. Yeah.
For example, we have the first. For example, you have an XML file, okay, and we have a root of a triple, and the root of the XML, and from here we have this id of the root, and there we have the RDF 1, 2, 3, 4, or in this case member, okay, and then we have the different objects of these triples. So in this case, if we want to query all of these values, we have to look for all the values that are aligned with this member object property, okay? So instead of querying for all the values, to specify a new way of extracting only for the navigation of only ones, not all, to get less time execution for this kind of Sparkle queries. This was a thing that I was thinking, because right now you have to search for all the values and take the type of this object that you are querying to obtain the one that you want.
Maybe this is a quite specific case. And I would suggest maybe you can open an issue on Spark or anything with a clear example so that we can have a discussion there, because this may be a way of...
Yes, of course.
So it's about a query optimization problem, maybe, and then we see if there is a case for a feature or.
But I think that the suggestion of Salva was, if I understood correctly, was to model the source format, and then we describe a mapping from the source format to the RDF. And that could be an idea of of course, maybe
wouldn't that just be a profile, Luigi? Won't we need any way to generate profiles? No,
it's
because we don't generate multiple vocabularies. We only generate one, which will be the FASADX.
You generate a single RDF facade from multiple source formats.
But couldn't it be confusing that we have basically we specify ontologies that will never be implemented only for the sake of describing the mapping? Seems a bit counterintuitive to me.
But for example, you can relate all of them to one ontology. the one upper ontology.
But that's the idea of FASADX. No, we have a one upper
That's
meta
the thing,
model.
right?
Then we don't need to represent each one of them separately.
Okay,
But then, if you want to specify how do you implement this in practice, you will have somehow to have a language to describe the various things. So I mean, it may end up that we just go by example, and and maybe this is enough. And certainly that may be the first step. We first do the vocabulary. We show by example how it works, and maybe we proceed from there. We understand if we give this to a software engineer, will this be something they can work on, or do we need to provide anything else? Ivo, sorry,
I just wanted to suggest, because I think this problem that Salvi is bringing needs a bit more context, just to postpone it until we provide you some information, and then we can discuss it in more detail.
Yes, better.
Absolutely. No, as I said, if you want to open a discussion on SPARQL or anything, or even on the new repository for the FASADX specification, if you think it's pertinent, please do. And maybe we can keep it offline, because surely it requires a bit of context, as I was saying. Okay.
So, but we can also, so we have to specify two things. One is the FASADX realization of data, and one is the mapping. For maybe for the RDF, I think that we can specify an RDF profile, and but for the mapping, maybe we could also use RML. I don't know if we could use RML in this case. Maybe the kind of mappings that we might want to create are too general, because here the source of the mapping is the meta model of the source format. We want to say every column from a CSV must be mapped in this property and this class. And I don't know if RML can help us in writing this kind of mapping. Maybe else as a suggestion in this, since she comes from the group.
I don't know enough at this point about FASADX, but for sure RML is the basic principle is that in RML we do describe the source, and then we describe how to, we have already solutions for describing the fields and sources, and then take them to map them. So, but I don't know exactly what can be the relation. Oh, how do you want to use the RML mapping? Then later on, you want to convert it to a FASADX and SPARQL anything mapping, or how do you?
No, my idea was just to use RML to express the mapping from the source meta model. For example, let's say I want to map every column of CSV, but not by enumerating all the columns, specifically all the columns from a source. I just want to use RML for a general kind of mapping from one meta
source
model.
Description.
Yeah.
We use in RML, we have some basic things to describe a source. We have a reference formulation. So of course, it would be very interesting to look at that, because what we have there is we have an abstract model which says every source has a reference formulation. It can be a JSON and CSV, SQL table, and so on. And then we have iterators, and the iterators, they define how you take out your columns or your fields from JSON or whatever. That's using either JSON path or in a CSV. You don't need an iterator because it's by default a row. And then you can refer automatically to each column. You don't need to define that anymore. But we use the references then inside the mappings. So the column names will appear in the mapping, and they know where to go to because we have iterators and we have a reference formulation.
Okay.
And it's described in the RML registry per source type how to do that, or what is linked to the source type.
Okay, maybe we have to. I need to have a look at it.
Yeah, I can give you a reference to the
Yeah, sure, please.
registry, and I think the core will be interesting. And then if you need to describe it even further, if the source is pretty complicated, we have logical views which go one step further and which can really describe the full source on field level if you want, and also with any relations between them. I will first give you some references.
In this way, we could use maybe RML for expressing this mapping. I don't know.
So the
Can you refer
putting
to aspects, components of the source format? For example, in CSV, I would say can I refer to the CSV headers, or can I refer to?
Yes, you can use the CSV headers inside your mapping. So this is a description of this is what we use. This is like an addition. Like when you were talking about, do we need an abstract model and on top of them some concrete vocabularies for the different source types? That's how we do it in RML. This is how we describe the different types. But then we have the I will go back and give you another link. We have the core, which defines how to start an RML mapping. I will give you that soon. So, anything related to sources. Here, I think it's interesting to look at the RML IO module. This module is the abstract description of how we describe a source in RML using then the registry for concrete sources, and also how we describe the output, the target where the mapping needs to be written to, where exactly it needs to go to, if it needs to be uploaded in a store or whatever. So that's that. And then for more complex sources, with, for example, mixed reference formulations or deeply nested files, which makes it more difficult to access, then we have logical views, which create, and logical views is probably going closer to FACAD-X, and it can be seen as a pre-processing module almost, to describe really your source in detail. All of those have vocabularies, have shapes and so on as well, and test cases. And I would say logical views can be used without any RML link to it for the rest, without RML mappings, for example. In logical views, you can really describe the source on beforehand before you start using it in a mapping. These are the specifications, and then we have, of course, the vocabularies and the shapes and the test cases and so on. But I would need some time first to read into FACAD-X and Sparkle Anything to be able to make the cross-reference and to see how this is used. That was my idea of being present here, to also see how this can enforce each other, or what is the double effort, or what is better in one approach or the other. So, but I didn't have the time yet to look in detail at FACAD-X.
Sure, no problem. But do you think maybe a first exercise will be, what if we want to translate a CSV in FACAD-X the way we do it? No, how will you would express those mappings in RML? Maybe that would be the basic starting point.
Yeah, would be a very interesting exercise.
Yeah, and then we see what is possible and how it will be expressed. And I will do the same with Shackle, for example. Another thing I would like to see if Shackle can express the FASADX meta model, because I'm not sure it can. Because we have, for example, we know that for each descriptor in the source, we generate an RDF property. Now, I don't know how to express this formally in Shackle or in RML, for example.
Yeah. I would be very happy to work with you on that, Enrico. If you can like start me up with some very simple example in FASADX and explain to me what it's meant with it, and then I can see if I can translate it to RML, for instance, or find a way to translate the source to. Yeah,
I mean, we can do it, for example, Luigi, do you want to show the first example we do on SPARQL Anything documentation? That's a very intuitive example.
What format?
No, in the first, is the first quick start, no? We have an example of source. Yeah, that's with a CSV, for example. And then after that, there is a JSON file. But this is an example.
Yeah, this is an example of this CSV with 3 columns. And basically the idea is that for each, so for the table, you create a container, so an entity that represents the whole table, so the whole CSV file.
Yes.
And you have a resource, another container for each row. So in this example, which is this is the generated RDF from this CSV, this external branch node of type root. But we can forget the type for a moment. So here the type, this whole container is for the whole table, and these 3 inner blank nodes are one for each row of this table. Okay, and so each row here maps to one blank node, and the container membership property creates a link from the table container to the row container. Okay, and here in this example, we use the column headers for minting the properties of the blank node which corresponds to 2 rows. Okay, so this is the blank node for the first row. Here. So the first row here is interpreted as header for the following rows, and we use the name of the column for the properties. So that's the interpretation of a CSV file, and
yeah, clearly any value in CSV is interpreted as a string because CSV doesn't have a notion of data type.
Yes.
If you scroll down, there is an example. The next example is with a JSON file, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is another example. This is an example of transformation of construct query. That's fine.
Okay.
And then this is the example with the JSON, which only includes string. But for example, in JSON, the specification supports Boolean types or float numbers.
Yes.
And in that case, we keep we assign the XML data type, the XSD data type that is appropriate for the format. So basically, essentially, we take all the components of the source specification, we mimic it into RDF through the facade.
Okay, and the facade is then an engine that runs and then creates the turtle file, and then it's used in SPARQL Anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
And what we want
So
to
you're
specify.
looking for a mapping to write to convert the source to this representation. That would be perfectly possible with RML. Yes.
Yeah. My idea was to use as a language for specifying mapping, because the mapping is implemented in the tool, and of course is documented, and we have also papers which describe the mapping in predicate logic, which is not very readable, I think. And so they maybe an idea could be specifying also this mapping in RAML, which is
Yes.
a language for dedicated for this purpose.
Yes, that should be possible. Yes.
Okay, that's great.
So maybe can we ask you, maybe you can prepare a draft or an example on how this could work for CSV or and JSON?
Yes. Yes.
And then we can discuss that maybe next time.
Yes. Yes. But I will be in touch with you then, Enrico, for if I have questions and to see exactly what is meant with it. Yes, that's okay.
You can write to me and Luigi, or you can even discuss this in the list. That will be absolutely fine. But you can also write to us directly as you like.
Yes. Yes. Okay, that's perfect. Would be good.
Ivo, I'm reading your comment.
Yes.
Can you maybe Ivo, maybe you can jump in with your comment?
It's about what actually is generic and most likely will not change. And what I see as the biggest value of FACEDEC, it's minimalistic nature, and with these constructs like container and literal. So there are a few things like that which are very useful, and they have proven their value universally, but I think they can be better specified, which I believe can go in parallel with this mapping exercise, and the two activities can learn from each other.
Absolutely. No, I think if I understand correctly, I mean, we will definitely start with writing the RDF vocabulary for FACEDEX, so that we have all the FACEDEX component well specified. And then we will explore, we start an investigation on how can we represent meta model mappings, essentially, which is mappings between the CSV, JSON, XML meta models, or whatever other meta model we want to consider to the FACEDEX meta model. That's the kind of the open quest at the moment. But definitely we will start by specifying the FACEDEX RDF vocabulary, and hopefully for the next meeting we can have a draft, because we already have the project, we know how it looks like, so that's gonna be trivial. Okay. Thank you so much. So anything else we want to discuss? Maybe we can prepare for next meeting. I would like to invite maybe Ivo. You have used Sparkle anything in your in a proof of concept. We will meet soon between us to get some feedback, but also would like you maybe to present during the next meeting in January, maybe to give a quick to share a bit your experience with FACEDEX.
Sure.
Nice. In the meantime, I think I will start contacting a few people in the network that work with graph databases, Sparkle, and ask them if they want to join and to maybe present about their experience on data integration with Sparkle, and if they use Sparkle anything, maybe some experience about the pros and cons of this approach. Okay. Shall we think about plan for the next meeting together, now that we are all here?
Yes.
So January, maybe January, not the 1st of January. Yeah. But what about the 5th? Monday, 5th of January. Would that be good for you? Especially Ivo and else, since we are going to talk about.
Here in Spain is holiday.
It's holiday? Okay.
Yeah,
so
and I'm working with Ivo within this POC, so that's the problem.
So why don't we push it a bit to the 12th, so that we make sure that all holidays is passed?
Let me see, because I think that I have to travel. So sorry, but I have a lot of things. Monday 12th, yes, I have. I can do Monday 12th.
You can do it. Okay, this same time.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay, fantastic. So I will, as usual, I and Luigi, we will do a bit of debrief, generate the minutes, share things with you on the list, including the link to the next meeting.
Yeah, and
Okay.
if you want to send me your GitHub account, I can add you to the GitHub organization and yeah, to contribute also to the GitHub repositories.
Nice. Okay. Anything else? Beautiful. So thank you very much, and enjoy this end of the year, and all the best. See you soon.
Thank you too. Bye bye.
There you go.
Bye-bye.
Bye.